Welcome to Taking the Myth, your topical, sceptical discussion show. I'm Stephen Knight, and joining me is Iram Ramzan. How are you doing?
I'm alright, how are you?
Good, can't complain. Bit tired, actually, truth be told.
Well, I think because you're vegan, you're probably lacking
That's it.
Essential vitamins.
All them nutrients. I'm reading a book, actually, at the moment called Sacred Cow. Someone recommended it to me a while back, and I added it to my list, and it's a case against vegetarianism and veganism.
Woohoo!
And it's good.
Excellent.
I'm enjoying it so far. Fair few compelling arguments, so maybe I'll be speaking to you from the comfort of a KFC family bucket next time we record this. Who knows?
Wow, dare to dream.
Yeah, it's nothing I haven't heard before, actually, but it's if you're looking for an other side argument, I'd recommend it because it's sort of data driven, and even if you don't agree with the arguments, this seems to be a sincere effort to make arguments rather than, propaganda. But I haven't finished it yet. It might take a strange left turn at the end. So, how are you? Still a murderer? Still eating animals?
I am, yeah. I think I plan to eat some animal tonight as well, actually. Yeah. Although I have to admit, I think I've probably only had a KFC once in my life.
Same. I think I had it once at a service station when I was about 22 or something.
It's obligatory if you go to a service station. You've got to eat a bucket of fried chicken.
You know, it's funny. I drove to Stirling in Scotland a couple of weeks ago. I stopped off at a service station there, and they had a Burger King, but they do this plant-based Whopper, and it's vegan. And I tried it, and it was absolutely incredible. Tasted like a shitty fast food burger, which is all you need.
That's what you want, isn't it? You know, sometimes you just want to eat shit as well.
Exactly.
You want to replicate the shit that these places serve.
But I was eating, I was thinking, this just tastes like a normal fast food burger. This is great. And then later on, I find out they actually cook it in all the fats and grease from the actual burgers.
Oh, okay.
So,
that's why it tastes.
That's probably why it tastes so good.
Yummy.
Yeah. So thanks for that, Burger King. I know they used to do that with the halloumi burgers, but I didn't think they'd do that with the plant-based burgers. It kind of defeats the point, but whatever. Not everyone's so picky about their diet. So that's food covered. Great. Feel good about that. Don't know about you.
Oh, damn, I'm really hungry now.
Should we just sack this off and go and get something to eat?
Yeah, I'm just going to go get some fried chicken. You can just get some, I don't know,
grass.
Chickpeas.
Just a handful of grass.
Got munch on the park
and
outside.
a chickpea. Right,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it might be worth mentioning the big story from a UK perspective this week. And we talk about this all the time in terms of terrorism plots being foiled, people on watch lists, people going to prison. And we had a really, really close call the other day. Area of Merseyside called Liverpool that I know you and I are both huge fans of.
Hate it.
Outside the Women's and Children's Hospital, a taxi pulls up, and as it's sort of slowing down in that area, there's a detonation in the rear of the car, and the taxi man driving it manages to escape with minor injuries from what I've seen. He came home the next day. But this, by all accounts, appears to have been a bungled attempted terror attack. A man attempting to detonate himself, and I think what happened is the detonator triggered too early, and he actually ended up killing himself in the taxi, and only himself. There's a little bit of debate about what his target would have been, whether it would have been a remembrance day ceremony close by, or whether it was the actual hospital. What are your thoughts on this? What do you know?
Well, from what we know so far, he's a 32-year-old, called himself Enzo Almini, but he was born in what Swale, supposed to be an Iraqi asylum seeker.
Oh, really?
And I remember,
I've heard like Syrian, Libyan. This is the first time I've heard Iraqi. There's been a lot of misinformation, hasn't there?
There is, I think, because obviously it was, ongoing, developing news. So you're gonna get more information as time comes. But at first we found out, he was a Christian convert. So of course, naturally, the usual suspects came out on Twitter and said, well, see, he's Christian. Nothing to do with his. Oh, but wait. What we do know now is that this man, he arrived, maybe like 7-8 years ago, and this asylum seeker had his asylum rejected, and then he converted to Christianity, changed his name by deed poll, and since then we found out that actually he'd been going to the mosque,
No.
which is very unchristian
What?
behavior. Yes.
You're kidding.
Yeah.
No way. That's crazy.
Yeah. So there's a piece that a colleague wrote in the Daily Mail. It's in the Daily Mail, so obviously
I saw that your
can't be taken seriously.
your employers broke that story, didn't they?
Yes. So because he was a Christian convert, there was a lot of curiosity around how many people are trying to gain asylum by pretending to be Christians, basically. And nobody knows if that's the reason why he converted, because nobody's sure at the moment what the reasons for him gaining asylum, and also if he appealed, what the grounds were for appeal. Nobody really knows yet, so we can't, we can only speculate at the moment. But in recent years, at least anyway, our immigration courts have heard cases of so many hundreds of asylum seekers who claim to have converted to Christianity in order to stay here, because obviously if they're saying they're Muslim and they converted to Christianity, then no one is going to send them back to an Islamic country because they'll face death for apostasy.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. So, what we know so far about this man, he was welcomed into Liverpool Cathedral, actually, which is where the remembrance ceremony was being held on the day of the explosion. And it was about a mile away, so we're not sure if that's where he intended to go.
That's a bit of a fair trek, especially when you're carrying an explosive improvised device. That's quite heavy, isn't it? I can imagine it'd be quite a strain on the back and knees, so I don't know if you want to be walking a mile with an explosive device.
But yeah, you probably wouldn't. But yeah, apparently he converted in 2017, and a lot of his former friends and congregants are saying that he just seemed to be quite open-minded, and he was welcomed with open arms, basically. But yeah, it's quite a strange turn of events. Nobody quite knows what his motive is just yet.
I think I might know. I think I might.
Well,
I might be able to point you in the direction of some information and theories.
But I just found it funny how I saw a few tweets from sort of the usual suspect types who were saying, see, look, he was a Christian. Stop speculating. We know he's a Christian now. Oh, we're going to say this about all Christians. And then it turns out actually he was going into mosque during Ramadan, and he bought bomb parts several months ago. But suddenly everyone's gone very silent. But it just brought up the question, really, of how we deal with asylum seekers in this country, and the methods of deportation, because there are, in a lot of these cases we find out that these people, they've applied for asylum, they've failed, and they should have really been deported. I don't know if you know, but Gervais, the one who murdered 3 men in a park in Reading last year, apparently he was also an asylum seeker who converted to Christianity after arriving from Libya. So yeah,
I mean, it'd be interesting to see if that gets logged in the terrorism statistics as Christian extremism or not. We'll have to wait and see. I mean, I've been a little bit irreverent about this bombing because, one, in a way, it's good news. This extremist had a kill count of 1, which was himself. Yeah, and I feel very mourning the loss. Feel very sorry for that taxi driver who had to experience that. That must have been not only terrifying, but he did get hurt. But we've really dodged a bullet here. I mean, just reporting in the BBC says that the homemade device included ball bearings as shrapnel. So that's obviously packed with small metallic objects, in the hope that when it explodes, they will disperse at a tremendous velocity and just rip through anything nearby, and what was nearby at the time was women and children in a hospital. So we could assume that may have been the intended target. So I mean, this could have been an absolute horrendous attack on every level, and the only thing that prevented it, might I add, was seemingly the bomber's own incompetence. So that's where we are now. I think people need to understand that, you know, anti-terrorism and our security services are not an all-seeing eye watching all people at all times. If somebody wants to carry out an act like this, it's literally only a matter of time. And the fact that it's fell out of the news cycle so quickly and we're all moving on just tells me again we still don't have the appetite to talk about extremism properly.
I mean, I don't know if it's completely fallen out. I guess there's just been other stuff going on as well, but I do get your point. I mean, it's like this with a lot of other terror incidents as well. You know, something happens and then, oh, okay. I mean, like with whole David Amess. I mean, who's talking about David Amess anymore?
Yes.
You know, the MP who was stabbed to death. I think his funeral's supposed to be taking place this week, or has it already taken part? You know, he was murdered by an Islamist, presumably, and we're still not allowed to talk about the reasons why. Everyone's talking about MP's safety, and like with this Imada Swilmeen, I actually saw a few people commenting about this, saying, "Oh, apparently he failed to win his asylum case. What does that say about our asylum system and the way we treat people?" I thought, oh, okay, so it's our fault that he wanted to blow us up, basically. Yeah, but you're right. I mean, we're not talking about David Amess anymore, and that was only last month, wasn't it?
We've become numb, haven't we? We're living in times now where it's commonplace to be expected. That troubles me quite a lot, how quickly we've all just accepted it as a way of life, a part of life, that at any moment someone might shoot up a load of people, blow up a load of people, or go on a stabbing spree. And not only that, when it's all done, fingers will be pointed in every other direction other than the attacker and their warped ideology. It's like I'm living in a parallel land. I mean, it's telling about the whole Christian convert thing, because we're usually told after instances like this that religion's not important. Then when it became known that he converted to Christianity, religion all of a sudden became very important to these people on the left. And then when it came out again that actually he's a regular visit to mosque, religion all of a sudden wasn't important anymore. So we sort of have to make up our mind about ideology and what it can influence, really, and what are reasonable things we can do about that. But, you know, I imagine I'll be rattling on about this on my deathbed. I can't see a way of progressing, unfortunately. I don't know about you.
You're right. I mean, we have the same debate, the same questions each time an attack happens, and it just gets boring after a while. And you think, are we not sick of having this same old debate now? Do we not want to move on? Do we not actually want there to be solutions to this problem or not?
I've got an idea. Has anyone actually looked into the possibility of making bombs illegal? Has that been considered?
I mean, pretty sure bombs already are illegal.
Is that right? Okay, that's okay. Got you. Yeah, forget that. Scrap it. Never mind. I've got nothing then.
I don't know. I think maybe if we're at least honest about why these things happen. I mean, I think security services are doing the best they can, considering, you know, it is only a matter of time, as you said, when someone decides to carry out an attack, and all you can really seem to do is try and minimise the damage as best as possible. And we are only lucky that, you know, this idiot just blew himself up, really. It's very reminiscent of the movie Four Lions. Four Lions.
Sorry. Yeah.
Three Lions.
Three Lions, yeah. Sorry, Four Lions was the sequel.
Three Lions is a little bit different, Stephen.
Yeah, I told you I was tired. Yeah, it was proper Rubber Dinghy Rapids, bro, efforts, wasn't it?
I mean, it's just incredible. I mean, I need to watch that movie again, because it was just so... absolutely spot on. I don't know if it was a case of, I don't know if this is a case of life imitating art or art imitating life, but it was pretty spot on. You know, a lot of these people are absolutely stupid.
Well, you look at, you look at the shoe bomber, Richard Reed, nearly, you know, the underpant bomber, nearly just blew his own testicles off nearly on a plane. You look at the...
Why would you put a bomb in your underwear? I mean, you know, as a... No self-respecting man would ever want to... I mean, I know he's probably going to kill himself anyway, but you think the last thing he'd want to do is blow his own dick off. That's a guy's most cherished possession, his own dick, and he was willing to fucking blow it off. I mean,
I think the idea was that that'd be a place least likely to be searched going through an airport, I would imagine. I think he thought, you know, no one wants to touch my groinal area. It's a safe bet. But obviously there was the Times Square attempted bomber, wasn't there, who left a bomb there. I think it may have been a car bomb. This was some years ago. But the only reason that didn't detonate is because he got his AM and his PM mixed up. He just put, I think he set it for 7 PM instead of 7 AM. Which, you know, it meant the bomb was found in time. Whereas if you'd just got that little detail right, we're talking about, you know, mass death and casualties. So, you know, I'm almost tempted to say thank God for stupidity in this case.
Yeah, amen.
Amen. Mashallah. Right. Well, I can spin the topics wheel and we have a choice of mandatory NHS jabs for NHS workers, should I say. Kyle Rittenhouse trial in America. Jeremy Corbyn attempting to sue somebody for a satirical image of him. I'd be very interested in getting your views on the UK's plans to make vaccinations mandatory for NHS workers. I'm not sure. See, this I've got a very surface level view of this story. I have to be honest. So I'm not sure if it's everyone in the NHS or whether it's just sort of frontline staff or care workers. But the idea is from 6 months from now-ish, I believe that everyone will need to have full vaccination status to remain employed in that profession. What are your thoughts?
I think it is only for frontline workers.
Right.
Yeah.
They're not sticking like nicking accounts or anything. It's just people on the front line.
No, I don't think nicking accounts or polling IT are going to be any danger to the public. I mean, I do think people should take the vaccine against COVID if they can, unless there's a reason they can't. You know, anyone asks me, I tell them, yeah, just get it. I mean, I've had it as well. You know, maybe that's probably the reason why we're not having high deaths at the moment, whereas in countries across Europe, you're seeing cases rise, maybe deaths rise. And so a lot of these countries now, like for example Austria going back into lockdown, Germany considering it. I mean, Austria, you know, had partial lockdown, so if you were unvaccinated you had to stay in, which is so fucking ridiculous. So yeah, I think I can see why they would want as many frontline workers jabbed. I mean, they're putting themselves at risks, and then they'll be, you know, putting others at risks. So, and
I suppose it's a way of demonstrating that you actually believe in healthcare if you get vaccinated as well. I mean, it is. I appreciate this is probably trickier because my emotional gut response to this is, well, yes, you work in healthcare, you need to be vaccinated, and if you don't have a good reason not to be, that's negligent on your part. But I agree that it's probably, you know, it might be more complicated than that. I struggle with people throwing out the argument of bodily autonomy. I still think bodily autonomy is irrelevant from this argument because no one's being forced to be vaccinated. You still have that personal choice. If you can say no to something legally, that's still a personal choice. Bodily autonomy remains intact, and I do appreciate it's not, the consequences aren't nothing. This is people's livelihoods. But I suppose it's a global pandemic, isn't it?
The problem that I have with this is that, you know, I think we, you know, the NHS and also the government need to be a lot more honest about the vaccines, because I think one of the reasons that's driving a lot of hesitancy is that, you know, I don't know if it's misinformation or also the fact that people feel that there are still some side effects to the vaccine. And you're forgetting that even if you've been vaccinated, it doesn't stop you catching COVID. It doesn't stop you spreading it. And, you know, there are still people who are in hospital who have been jabbed. They're still in hospital. So it's not necessarily stopping you catching it or
it's never been considered
and I know
100%.
Yeah, I know nothing has ever been considered. Nothing is ever 100%. But at the same time, you know, they kept saying, "Oh, vaccines are our way out of it." But then, if people can see for themselves that having the vaccine isn't gonna stop COVID completely, then I'm not surprised that people are hesitant, or they think that there's some sort of weird conspiracy going on. That's why you get people believing in conspiracy theories. I think if the government and the NHS were a little bit more honest about it, saying that, okay, you know, there are still risks to taking the vaccine, and not everybody can take vaccines. You know, what if you have some side effects to it? I mean, it's like with the AstraZeneca jab, there was a clot risk. I know somebody who had the jab, and also I think he had it wasn't a clot, but there was some other serious problem that happened when he took the vaccine. And you know, this isn't somebody who's some sort of weird conspiracy theory. He's a very well informed person, and he willingly went to take his jab, and then he ended up really, really ill. And you know, he said, "I just don't want to take the second dose because who knows what symptoms I might get after doing that." And I think, you know, the most that you can do is just like educate people as much as possible, and encourage them as well, rather than threatening them like, "Oh, we're going to have vaccine passports. Oh, we're going to lock people up if they're not double jabbed." Because being double jabbed, I don't think it's. I don't think it's, as I said, even having the jabs isn't going to stop you getting COVID or spreading it. You know, maybe it's led to fewer deaths, which is obviously good. But, you know, for how long is this going to continue for? I think maybe frontline workers might be a different case, because they already have to have various different vaccines in order to work. I think hepatitis B, for example, you know, because they are at extreme risk, really, of all sorts of illnesses because of the environment they work in. So I can understand why there is a need for them to maybe for them to be compelled to take it. But I don't know, I'm more on the case of autonomy here. I think you shouldn't really force people to have the jab.
I agree, but then again, I don't think it's being forced. I think it's rock and a hard place for sure, but I don't think anyone's being
forced.
In
certain countries. It is, like, if you look at, you know, Austria, you know, I mean, now they have a full lockdown for everyone, but, you know, they were seriously you know, they had a policy in place where they were putting the unvaccinated people under lockdown, and that clearly didn't bloody work.
Like
so I just
Austria
don't see the point of it.
Produce some form of authoritarianism, is it? But I mean, just going back to what you were saying there about, you think the government could do better on their messaging to allay fears about certain things. I was in complete agreement with that, but I've had a bit of a change of heart, and I'll explain why. So when I started seeing people spreading misinformation about blood clots, or not so much misinformation, but overemphasizing it and causing panic, I was thinking, why doesn't the government at one of their briefings get up on the podium and clear up the misinformation, or speak about blood clots and put them into context and stuff like that? And I realised, hang on, if you get a government official going on the television speaking to millions and starts talking about blood clots, you're going to get a whole host of people going, sorry, what was blood clots?
Oh, they might have the opposite.
Yeah, and I think it's called anchor theory or something similar to that. You know, the first piece of information you get is the one that seems to stick, regardless of what comes after.
Right.
So sometimes there's this weird sort of phenomenon where even if you debunk a conspiracy theory, if people come to the debunking first, they'll often only remember the conspiracy theory afterwards rather than the debunking, and that. So I mean, I might be giving the government too much credit here. Maybe they're incredibly savvy and thinking we don't want to get up there and start talking about blood clots, things like that, because that'll just alarm people more. Or maybe they genuinely are complacent. I mean, I'm not making a definitive choice on that, but I'm not entirely sure. It's counterintuitive, isn't it? You think someone should just get up there and tell the truth and explain the situation we're in, but it doesn't always work that way, unfortunately.
I wonder if also it's a symptom of a lack of trust in government as well.
Yeah.
For not taking the vaccine, and I'm not surprised at the shit that this government has got up to during the pandemic. I think there is just very little trust in the Prime Minister and the government, and maybe no matter what they say, there are still some people who won't believe them. Yeah,
I tuned into PMQ's Prime Minister's questions this week for the first time in a while. I've just sort of checked out of all that, and Boris Johnson's he seems to be degrading every time I see him in every possible way, both vocally and physically. It's obviously taken a huge toll on him, this entire pandemic, and you're finding a lot of hardcore Tories are really losing trust in the government as well. So it'll be interesting but then again, the Labour's so piss weak, they can get away with this kind of shit, can't they?
Yeah, we just have. We've got Boris Johnson just spouting off about bloody climate change. Oh, God, don't even get me started on that, Stephen.
You've annoyed the vegans at the start of the podcast, and now you're going to go for the Greens.
I am. Fuck the Greens. They're all just going to make us colder and poorer. Their shit policies. Fucking hell. Do you know what? I really hope I don't live a long life, because I'll probably end up having such a shit quality of life living in a cave and freezing my arse off, because none of us can afford central heating or to drive anywhere, because they've got rid of anything that they think will pollute the planet. So yeah, fuck that. Let's all go back to the Stone Age era. Oh my God, Stephen.
Can hear Greta Thunberg crying.
I'll make her cry. I hope I meet her and I fucking make her cry myself.
Sometimes do you want to be like, silence, the adults are speaking now. Who let you in? God. I still don't quite understand her rise to prominence, but I suppose that's a different conversation. It might just be worth then, very briefly, talking about an old friend of ours, Jeremy Corbyn.
So I saw you going off on Jeremy Corbyn this week. What's he done now?
Well,
what's he done now?
I have a really, really huge dislike of people in power, or people who have power and influence rather, who have a complete inability to take a joke, or not so much that, tolerate criticism, ridicule, etc. And I don't mean agree with it and laugh about it and pretend you love it. Nobody likes it. I'm talking about taking legal action. So to put things in context, there's a couple of layers to this which are very strange. But we spoke at the start of this conversation about the attempted terrorist attack outside a Liverpool hospital, and somebody had taken an image. And when I say somebody, I mean a Tory councillor had taken an image of the burning car outside the hospital that had just exploded due to the terrorists' improvised device, and they'd photoshopped Jeremy Corbyn walking up behind it holding a wreath in his hand, as if he was there to pay his respects to the terrorist. Now that's funny on several levels, because this isn't apropos of nothing. A while back there was a huge Jeremy Corbyn wreath laying controversy in our national media, because he had been pictured laying wreaths for terrorists that had killed Jews. There's a lot of debate about whether he was just holding the wreath and not laying the, whether he held the wreath but he didn't inhale, these kind of things. Whatever. I don't. Fuck off is what my answer to that is. He always seems to break bread with extremists, and it does not surprise me to find him laying wreaths for Jew killers. But there we have it. So that's what that image was depicting. It was in no way. I mean, I don't think anyone anyone with 2 brain cells, there's no way they're coming away from that image thinking, why is Jeremy Corbyn outside a Liverpool hospital? That's strange. And thought he was genuinely there. So this Tory councillor tweeted this. Now, I personally think, although it's funny, it's pretty unprofessional if you do that in your official capacity as a councillor, as a public servant. It doesn't set a good example. It doesn't make the general public think you're a serious, sincere person, does it? It makes you look like a bit of a div, let's be honest. I mean, I could do it. I could get away with it. No one expects anything from me. I could get away with that. But, Tory councillor, you should have a bit more respect. Not for Jeremy, just for yourself.
No, I get what you mean. And I think he's been suspended.
He's been suspended.
By his local group.
Yeah.
So, action has been taken.
Yeah.
He's taken the tweet down, and then he said sorry. And apparently he's even written a letter to Jeremy. I mean, God, that's a bit overkill. But yeah, anyway, he has apologised.
Yeah, lesson learned
and
there.
That is the end of the matter, isn't it?
You would imagine so, since the Tory councillor's called Paul Nickerson, by the way. He's actually apologised and claimed his account was hacked, which seems to be the excuse of the day, doesn't it? When people go off piste on social network. But no, it's not the end of it, because good old Magic Grandpa was having none of it. Apparently, according to The Independent, he's launching legal action. The former Labour leader is acting in response to a crudely composited image that depicted him laying a poppy wreath on the burning wreck of the taxi caught up in the Liverpool hospital bombing. That is fucking funny. I don't care who you are. That is funny. And it's just funny to see all these people who think they're sort of, commie punk anarchist who, support Jezza, championing the idea of a fucking politician suing somebody for a satirical image, as if that's a good precedent to set in the discourse. So it'll be interesting to see. I get a feeling that Jeremy Corbyn, well, at least I hope here, he'll no longer he won't proceed with the action. I think he'll accept the apology, and I think he'll make this guy eat humble pie. I think he'll have to, throw himself on the cross publicly and apologise. But it's just crazy. I mean, can you imagine if somebody like Boris Johnson sued every time there was a crude cartoon of him, and what we'd think of him for doing that?
Yeah, good point. I thought the Tories were suing, is it the New European magazine, over a comment that they made about Carrie Johnston.
Oh, I did not know that. We'll see how it goes. I mean, I'd actually prefer him to get in front of a court with this, because the courts will just say, well, has this damaged your reputation? Because it's not. He already has a damaged reputation as a wreath layer for terrorists. That's why the satirical image works. That's why it's funny. So I don't think he can claim, like, why is he saying I support extremism? Because that would be if someone implied out completely untruly or without precedent that Jeremy Corbyn is a supporter of extremists or terrorists, that could be libelous, that could be defamation. But he has a solid track record of doing so, which is fair game for satire and ridicule. And I think it's funny, don't you, that of all the times he's publicly been called an anti-Semite, he's not got litigious about that once, has he? I don't recall him ever suing anyone about it. He doesn't fancy his chances in court on that one, does he?
That's a really good point. Yeah, he normally says nothing about that, but then with this, very quick off the mark. I just looked it up, and actually Downing Street is denying any plans for a libel action. It is against the New European, and they claim that there was a defamatory comment made in it because Boris Johnson allegedly claimed to have buyer's remorse over his marriage to Carrie.
Buyer's remorse?
I mean, I don't think that's defamatory. I think you might say, it's inaccurate because he never says it. But I think Ms. Carrie is not very happy about that. So probably said something.
Shall we get ourselves into trouble and wade headfirst into a massive incident, topic, situation, and court result in the US of A?
We're really gonna lose all 2 of our US followers.
Yeah, it's funny because I thought it was just the Brits and the Europeans weighing in on this that have no comprehension of gun laws in America and self-defense rights, but it's a lot of Americans as well, strangely. So what I'm talking about is Kyle Rittenhouse. Now, young teen from the Wisconsin area. Been to Wisconsin, actually. He turned up.
Is Wisconsin the dairy state, or am I thinking of something else?
It was the beer state when I was there, I'll be honest with you.
It was the beer and hangover state.
Yeah, the beer and hangover, nearly missing your flight home state. So, yeah, Kyle Rittenhouse, at the time of, 17 years of age, he decided in response to BLM activists and Antifa activists, burning towns, destroying businesses, he decided he was going to turn up to Kenosha armed and defend businesses or, administer medical attention to people that need it. Now, we've got loads of videos of him offering, medical attention. He did help people medically. He wanted to, stand in front of a building and prevent it from a business from being attacked. Now, if you want to ask me whether it's a good idea that Americans can legally open carry in certain states and use guns for, self-defense, I'm going to say that's a pretty bad idea. My views on the Second Amendment are pretty paradoxical. For example, if I lived in America now, I'd want to own a gun, to protect myself and my family at home. That's why I'd want a gun. However, if you used to ask me whether the Founding Fathers should have put that in the Constitution, no, that's mental. That's absolutely fucking mental. What are you talking about? But we have to deal...
It is bizarre that you have to put that in a Constitution, that you have to own that you can own a gun. It's, wow.
And I think you can see how well that's turned out when you compare it to other places that don't have them levels of gun ownership laws and gun culture. I think the UK, for instance, is far better off for its gun rights. People are free to disagree with me on that. That's fine. I'm not coming for your guns, America, but just know how mental it looks to the rest of the world. However, we've got to treat this situation in the context of where we are. America is a place full of guns. They have the Second Amendment. They're legally able to carry guns, so this changes the parameters of violent conflicts and self-defense. So if you want to argue about the Second Amendment, fine, just realize that the Second Amendment wasn't on trial. Kyle Rittenhouse was on trial, and all the jury was asked to do was to find out and deliberate on whether or not he fired that gun because he wanted to kill people, and that's the only reason he fired it, or did he fire the gun in self-defense? Now... Yeah,
so from what I can understand, the prosecution was arguing that he was a wannabe soldier and a vigilante, and he had travelled to Kenosha because he wanted to cause trouble, basically.
Yeah.
And he's the one that caused this deadly chain of events by bringing, a lethal weapon. Walking about like, I think they said, a hero in a western, and he was looking for trouble. So that's my understanding of what the prosecution was saying, that's why he went there.
The prosecution was piss poor, by the way, and I to be fair, I didn't think the prosecution had a good case. Any prosecution would have struggled, but you could have got people to do a better job. They were absolute clowns. I remember watching it thinking, what the fuck are you doing? And then I started thinking, prosecution's that bad that this must be a trick. He's playing a game here, and he's going to reveal his hand right at the end and turn it all around. And no, he's just really bad at his job. But luckily,
the third man he shot, he was armed as well, wasn't he?
He was. He pointed the gun. So this guy who had the gun in his hand at first had his hands up, and Kyle Rittenhouse on the floor at the time with his gun, didn't shoot him. As soon as this guy approached Kyle Rittenhouse and lowered his gun in the direction of Kyle Rittenhouse's face, Kyle Rittenhouse shot him in the arm. This guy actually survived. Now, on the stand, under oath, this person who was shot in the arm openly said, yes, he didn't shoot at me or point his gun at me until I pointed my gun at him. Right, so that's self-defense. There's this straight... People can't seem to understand self-defense. So just to be clear, under the concept and laws of self-defense, you are under no obligation to be either hurt first or shot first before you can defend yourself.
But it's almost as though that's what people want. It's almost as though you have to have been shot and almost dying before you decide to raise. It's
like, can you imagine if I'm just going to wait till he shoots first? Oh, he's shot. He's missed me. Oh, unlucky old bean. I believe it's my turn now. It's insane. What's like they're saying like he brought a gun to a skateboard fight because one of the people he shot was attempting to hit.
He had a skateboard. Yeah,
it was hitting him on the neck. Like how, with a skate. But how many times are you obligated to be hit in the face or on the neck with a blunt object before you can defend yourself. And obviously, because there's a gun in the mix, because he's in possession of a firearm and people are attacking him physically, you absolutely 100% have to go with the assumption that if they get that gun off you, you are in bigger trouble than a skateboard. That's that's the problem with having guns, really. It escalates every violent conflict, and we can talk about whether that's reasonable, but that's the reality of the situation. Luckily, every single incident was caught on video. I mean, it's there for everyone to see. He's running away in all the clips, and he only shoots people when they catch up to him and violently attack him. That's it. Now, it's unfortunate, but that's self-defense. And it's unfortunate that a gun's involved, but it is self-defense. If he's an active shooter that's gone there to murder people, he's the worst active shooter in the history of American shootings. He only coincidentally got people whilst running away from them that were attempting to assault him. All the other people that he could have picked off throughout the day seemingly got away with it. So it's one of them things where it doesn't matter what the documented evidence is, people have a political bias. One is a white guy, so that goes against him. Two, it was a BLM protest riot. It was a BLM riot. Now, you know what the crazy thing about all this is? The misinformation was spread as soon as this happened and throughout the trial, and even continues after the verdict, that he shot black people.
Oh my God, I was just going to say, I saw a screenshot of a newspaper or an online news piece that said he shot dead 3 black men. And I'm pretty sure I saw a few people tweeting that as well. And I thought, what? That's a pretty big thing to get wrong.
It's very dangerous.
How can you willingly put out wrong information out there like that? I mean, things like that can cause a riot, you know?
Yeah. Here's the scary thing, though. Even if the people he shot were black, it still would have been self-defense. So I don't understand why that would have made it worse anyway. But then again, I don't filter everything through skin colour, fortunately. But they've made a situation where a white guy killing a couple of white guys and injuring a third.
It's all about race.
It is somehow indicative of white supremacy. So that's strange.
Point that they're trying to make. I suppose the point that they're trying to make is that, if it had been a black defendant who had shot other people, then who knows if he would have been found not guilty. And obviously he wouldn't have been.
Yeah, and somebody's done a super thread on this of black people that have been found not guilty. I think there was one today. There's literally one today. About black people that have been found not guilty of murder and shooting people in self-defense. The thing is, the reason we don't hear about them is because they're not newsworthy. But a white guy kills a couple of people at a BLM riot, and we all lose our head about it. I mean, all the organisations are coming out saying this is a huge injustice, and it's incredible to me that they can look at all the evidence, all the pieces, and literally want to destroy a man's life. And I don't care about his character. I don't care about his politics. I don't care who he is, really. What I care about is what happened on that night, and at what point and why did he fire that weapon. And luckily, we have a second-by-second account of it. Imagine if we didn't have the video. Imagine how much worse that would have been. So it's just incredible to me that news media, commentators, and the left can conspire to pump out masses of misinformation about something where the evidence is so clear and available to everyone. It scares me a little bit. It scares me in the way that it seems it could be almost impossible to get a fair trial in America. I suppose my question for you is, so I'm not a big fan of the Second Amendment, but I begrudgingly agree it's necessary now. I'm a huge fan of the First Amendment in America that protects speech. I'd love the UK to have it. We are far behind on that score. But this also means that whilst there's a live trial going on, everyone can talk about it. Everyone can say what they want to say about it, ad nauseum, and it does not stop. But in the UK, for instance, that shit's locked down straight away. As soon as active proceedings have begun, in a court case, you are heavily restricted on what you can say about it, and that's to protect the integrity of a fair trial. Now, I think that's possibly a superior way of doing it. I don't know how you feel.
No, I agree with it because because then it can lead to the collapse of a trial later on. If there's so much speculation going around, and a defendant can easily claim, look, there's been all this on social media, there's been these newspaper articles, I'm not going to get a fair trial because the jury will have read it or watched all these commentaries, etc., and it'll lead to a mistrial. Who knows? So I'm very much in favour of that, to be honest with you. I can see why some people would find it contradictory, because they'll say, well, publish and be damned, face the consequences. Oh well, free speech is more important. But I think it is a bit more of a civilized way of doing it, and I don't like the idea of cameras being in court either. I think it can turn people, especially like horrendous monsters as well, into celebrities. I mean, I think we already are too fascinated with serial killers, for example, and we do glamorize them a bit, and people like that, they do get off on publicity. They like it. It's good for their ego. So that's where I stand on that. And as for the Second Amendment, I don't disagree with the idea of people having guns generally. I think especially in a country like America, depending on where you live, you will need it. But I think definitely in some circumstances they could do with amending and restricting who can have a gun, and make sure that there are so many checks in place there to make sure people aren't using guns recklessly as well. I'm just saying, if you're in the middle of a ranch and you're worried about your family's protection, sometimes you need that, and it depends on the environment you're living in. But I think in a maybe more urban environment, probably don't need it.
I don't know. I mean, it's sort of strange because you would think you shouldn't have it in an urban environment, but I would imagine there's probably more gun crime there. So the people would want it for that reason.
Yeah, but the guns are helping. If all those people did have guns, that's probably exacerbating the problem.
Sure, but
maybe I'm wrong. Fine,
well, the horse has bolted, hasn't it? I think the problem is I sort of agree with you. I think it should be harder to get a gun. People like Sam Harris have put forward the idea it should be almost the equivalent of getting a pilot's license, which sounds good to me. However, if you make it harder for people to legally acquire guns, it doesn't deal with the vast quantities of illegal guns that are out there. They aren't going to be affected by these new legislations and methods. So the people who just want to protect themselves legally will never sign off to it. It's the kind of thing, what's the NRA slogan? The only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. Or if you take away all guns from good guys, only bad guys have guns. And unfortunately, it is propaganda, and but there isn't a kernel of truth to it. So I don't know how you solve this problem. It feels like the problem. I feel like too many cats are out the bag, and there's no way to wrangle them back in now. So we'll see. But you only have to look at the data on gun homicides and suicides and all these things that are pretty esoteric. They're very American. It's not a problem. Like, we had our biggest mass shooting for I don't know how long a couple of weeks ago, and 5 people were killed, most of which was one guy's family, and that was a shocking event. We don't get close to American standards of mass shootings or daily gun violence. And I mean, there were other reasons for that culturally as well, population size. I'm not trying to be too simplistic, but I think as outsiders looking into America and guns, it comes across as quite insane to me.
I don't know, what can you do about it, really?
Yeah.
Nothing. I don't think there's going to be that much of an appetite to change. But I was annoyed at Biden commenting on this case. He was disappointed, but he'll stand by the jury. What? How can you say, I stand by the jury, but I'm disappointed? Shut up.
Yeah. Thanks, Biden, for respecting the law. Yeah. It's
Did you hear that he's given some of his powers temporarily to Kamala Harris because he had to go in for a routine colonoscopy, and I thought, that's not something I really wanted to read first thing in the morning.
I thought he died because I got the news alert about Kamala Harris becoming acting president, and it just came up on my phone. I thought, oh, and you know what? It didn't surprise me. I thought he's probably just put his head down, for a nap and drifted off into the great unknown, and that's the story. I mean, he looks like he's knocking on heaven's door, doesn't he? Let's be honest. You think a loud noise really might just send him over the edge? He doesn't project the idea of world dominance, does he, Sleepy Joe? But there you go. So, what do you want to do? Do you want to have a look at some questions, maybe, for the last 5 minutes or so?
Yeah, why not?
So, Dave Watts has asked, it seems obvious that the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict is correct and that better gun control laws would be a good idea, but Americans seem to be so tribally divided that he has to be either a hero or a murderer, and each side ignores reality to support their agenda. Is there any hope? That's a great question. I think we've probably I think we've probably covered the main bulk of it, but I suppose one of the things we haven't touched on, I think it's probably fair that we do, is that we've talked about the leftist derangement on this issue, screaming that he's a white supremacist murderer that crossed state lines to kill black people that day. So that there's that level of psychosis. But then there's also the people on the right who are shouting about this kid being a hero and wanting to make him some sort of poster boy for gun-toting, property-defending hero, very heavily embraced by that side of the political divide. And I think, obviously, that's a step too far as well. He's not a hero. I do think he is a stupid boy for doing what he did. But again, he's not on trial for being a stupid boy. He has done nothing wrong in the eyes of the law, which is the main bullet point. Is there any hope? I don't think so. I mean, how many schools get shot up before anything happens? How many schools have been shot up, rather, and nothing seems to change? I love America, but this one issue seems to be there to stay, unfortunately.
Dave Watts has also asked about Stonewall.
It's the Dave Watts show.
Only Dave listens to
Only Dave this time. Dave has also asked, with the BBC pulling back from Stonewall after the excellent Nolan Investigates podcast and cracking interviews by Emma Barnett on the Revitalised Women's Hour, maybe there is hope after all.
So there's no hope with the gun laws, but there might be hope on this.
Well, I think he's absolutely...
trans debate.
Yeah, he's absolutely right, because we are seeing, for a while, there was this massive screaming criticism towards BBC's Woman's Hour, which is a show ostensibly dedicated to tackling the big issues relating to women. There's a big issue about how they were just completely ignoring the idea of gender ideology and its encroachment on women's rights and spaces, and this growing movement of women protesting against it. They just seemed to completely ignore it. And whenever they did have someone on to talk about it, it was usually a trans woman. So a lot of, gender critical feminists were saying, why aren't you speaking to women who have genuine concerns? And we are seeing a shift in emphasis here, aren't we?
We are, because Stephen Nolan he's done a spectacular podcast, which I have still not got around to listening, because I'm guessing it's not a very light, cheerful listen.
You'd be surprised, actually.
When I'm in a serious mode.
It wasn't serious enough for me. That's the problem I have with it.
Right. Yeah, so basically, after he did this podcast and said that there were questions over the BBC's relationship with Stonewall, after that, then the BBC said it wouldn't be renewing its participation in Stonewall Diversity Champions Programme, which is, I think, fair enough. I mean, I don't think any lobby group should have that much influence over any organisation, and they seem to have had so many governmental bodies who've signed up to it. And can you imagine, I don't know if it was like the Muslim Council of Britain lobbying the BBC or the Home Office, and how we would feel if we found out that they were taking all their views seriously and without much question. So, I mean, I'd like to say that there has been a shift of some sorts, but then you still get people invited on to TV, I think she's a journalist or calls herself one. Ellie Mae O'Hagan, she came on a BBC Politics TV show, talking about, trans women and all these issues about biology and sex. And then she said, I don't know what makes some people men and some people women. And you just think, how the fuck have we got to a point where somebody can, with a straight face, come out with a statement like that? Like, how could you not know if somebody is a man or a woman? I mean, first of all, pull down their trousers if you have to.
Can I just interject here? Don't be pulling down anyone's trousers. I will not be held legally responsible for...
Okay, I've not pulled anyone's trousers.
I'll at least offer them a drink first.
Without consent, definitely not. But the thing is, I mean, it's just denying basic biology and science. Your whole, your chromosomes can affect everything. Your sex affects everything in your body. It's not a case of, oh my goodness, I don't know. I'm just feeling really enraged right now because it's one thing having an opinion on, I don't know, like I was having this debate with somebody else about, the idea of race. You know how we've had people like, was it Rachel Dolezal, her name?
Yeah, transracial Rachel Dolezal. Dolezal.
So she claimed to be black. Because I think maybe you can be, I guess, transracial because race is more... Maybe race can be more fluid because we're part of the whole human race. That, in a way, I can sort of understand.
What's interesting, though? I, as a white male, have more genetically in common in almost every way to a black man than I do to a white woman.
I'm shocked.
So I am closer to that than I am to the opposite sex. So if we're going to say there's a bridge between my gametes and chromosomes to the opposite sex, and that's fine, you really have to ask yourself some uncomfortable questions about actually how much more closer I am to a black man in every conceivable metric compared to the opposite sex.
This subject is really, really fascinating. Earlier this week, the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, they ruled that transgender athletes should not have to lower testosterone to compete. I don't know if it's binding as such, but they said labeling athlete sex, they basically said sex testing is invasive and disrespectful. And in a new report, they said they're hoping to promote inclusion for transgender competitors, and I just think that is absolutely unfair.
It is and it isn't. It's a bit mad, but in a way it makes sense to me. So I don't know if I've got a book to read on this still, but from my preliminary understanding of some of the studies, differences in testosterone or reducing testosterone doesn't make much difference anyway, because it's not about the levels of testosterone in your systems as an adult that gives you the edge. It's the testosterone through puberty that gave you the edge. So, obviously that accounts for my
but the thing is,
bone density, muscle mass,
fair enough
height.
about the testosterone. Yeah, I get it. Like, even if you say, testosterone isn't going to count for as much, it's just the point that it's a symptom of something much bigger. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, so basically they're trying to get rid of any way of trying to make a distinction now, which, I appreciate that's concerning.
It's just absolutely outrageous how all these things are affecting women. It's not affecting men. No. It's not men's spaces that are being eroded. It's women's, and it is I think it's a form of misogyny. I really do. It's showing disrespect for women, and I'm just surprised more women are not. I think a lot of women are starting to be a lot more vocal now, especially with the whole Professor Kathleen Stock incident as well.
Have you noticed it's always bearded men with pronouns in their bio telling women to get back in their lane on this topic? They've got like the SJW sneaky fucker male feminist starter pack So yeah, I think I think that issue of misogyny is a massive one, and it's the one that's not getting as much attention as it should do rather. But I mean, I'm hopeful. I think the issue is here. So I think there's an edge that women tend to have when you afford women equality. I'm talking about freedom of expression, freedom to organise. I think women generally do that better than men, and I think that's what we're seeing now. There are far too many women now finding each other and agreeing that this is an issue. There's a strength in numbers aspect of it, and people are feeling more confident about speaking out against it. And I think the impetus rather is with the gender critical women at this point, and rightly so.
On a lighter note, have you seen any good movies?
Have I? I saw the new Ghostbusters movie the other night. It got delayed. It got postponed for a couple of years because of fucking COVID. Pandemic felled it. I think it was supposed to come out in like July 2020, maybe earlier. And I don't know. Have you seen the original Ghostbusters, the 1984 classic?
Oh, like years ago when I was a kid. I barely remember it though.
It still stands up. Actually, it's still a classic comedy. And it works really well. People shit on the sequel, the second one. I enjoyed it for what it is. I appreciate it's not as good as the first. Then, I don't know if you remember, they made that god-awful 2016 reboot with the female comedians. No. And it was, what was it? It was dog shit. And people...
Like I said, I didn't even touch that. I just knew it was going to be
that's interesting that you say that. So, it was an all-female cast. And there were people who were straight out the gate against this film, and the narrative was spun that it was a bunch of men who were misogynistic, and that's why they didn't want to see the film. I didn't want to go and see the film at the cinema because I wasn't interested. They'd taken something I loved and changed it beyond recognition, so it wasn't the thing I loved. So I was indifferent. I've got nothing against the women in it. I actually like the performers in it. I've seen them in other things, and they're always great. And the funny thing is, the film didn't do very well at the box office, and they blamed all these misogynistic men. But the thing is, women didn't go and fucking see it either. So you might want to address your marketing campaign. And it was bad. It was silly. It was like a 2-hour Saturday Night Live sketch of people pretending to be Ghostbusters, which can be fun on Saturday Night Live, but it's not, in the theatre when people have been waiting 30 years to revisit a beloved franchise, you have to do a little bit better. So that's what this new film is. It's a direct continuation of the original mythology and lore. And the funny thing is, the central main characters are female, and they are fantastic. They are the young girl who fronts this film is the hands down the best thing about the film. Her performance in that is wonderful. As a matter of fact, I was enjoying the new stuff so much. When they started bringing in some of the old stuff, I thought the film dipped a little bit.
Do you think Michael Owen would like it?
Fucking Michael Owen. Oh God, I can't live in a world where Michael Owen's probably not seen Ghostbusters. But it's a great film. So, I mean, if you're a massive fan, it'll work for you. I'm probably a bit too emotionally invested in it, and fucking had a little tear at the end, Iram, and it's very rare a movie does that to me. There's quite a big emotional finale, to be honest, and if you're a big fan, it really hits you in the feels. I don't know how this is going to play with a new generation. I don't care much. The kids in the screening seem to enjoy it that I saw, until I told them to shut the fuck up. No laughing on my watch when I'm trying to listen. So I suppose my point here is, on this, there seems to be a commitment to critics to shit all over this new film now, because they see it as an example of the toxic fandom getting what they want, i.e. the old Ghostbusters back. So just to give you an example, are you familiar with the Rotten Tomatoes? The 2016 Ghostbusters has a critical score of 74%. Which is high. The audience score is 49%. So the audience thought it was dog shit. The critics said it was great. Right?
Oh,
so there's
always a mismatch between...
There's a disparity there. Now, this new Ghostbusters film, the critics have given it a score of 61%, which is average and lower than the reboot. However, the audience score is 95%. Positive.
Wow.
Admittedly, there's only just over 1,000 reviews in at this point, but more will come in. So And most of the negative reviews I read, especially in The Guardian, referenced...
You read The Guardian?
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I apologise. It got me at a moment of weakness.
By mistake.
Yeah. But they mentioned the all-female reboot, and we're very... almost mourning the fact that wasn't continued, and this was a win for toxic fandom. So I think my underlining point here is even film review viewers are getting very political now, and not telling you what is in a film, but trying to tell you what should be in a film, which are two different jobs, really. If they make films.
The film is about entertainment. I don't want a film to fucking preach at me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I want that, I'll watch a documentary. But tell you what I watched and enjoyed.
Go on.
I watched Afterlife with Ricky Gervais.
Yes.
I finally got around to watching it.
People fucking love that. I get people who are like... I have friends and family who have never watched The Office, never watched Extras. I've never dipped in and out Ricky's stand-up comedy, but they'll say they absolutely love Afterlife. And I mean, like, really love it with a massive sort of emotional investment.
It's brilliant because he's lost his wife, so he's utterly depressed and suicidal, and talks about his suicide so candidly as well. And what I think what I liked most about it is that he works at a local paper, and
is he your spirit animal now?
Yeah, and he hates it when people make weird noises. He's me. That is me. Yeah. Oh god, it was hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. I hope Michael Owens watches it because I think he really will get something out of it.
Just to brag, I got to go to the preview screening of the first 2 episodes of the first season. It was at BAFTA. And, like Les Dennis is walking around and Paul Kaye and all the cast.
Where was my invite?
Sorry. I'll put a word in next time. But I remember watching them first 2 episodes and I'm thinking, this is it. He's kind of found his thing here. This is pure Ricky. And on that note, is there anything else you want to get in?
Well, I just hope you have a great evening eating fried chicken.
Oh, I could just do with some fried chicken, See, that's the thing. Like, I don't miss steak or prime cuts of meat. It's things, and I don't miss meat in general, to be honest. But if I could, the feeling of gnawing meat off a bone, that sounds dirty, doesn't it? I'm gonna have to edit all this out. This has been a disaster for me. I mean, if people have got this far, hashtag gnawing. You have to Google how to spell that first, but I think that's a fair hashtag, isn't it? Gnawing. Iram, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Likewise.